Good evening. I wanted to jump on for a brief update on what we did this afternoon at General Conference. The big story was the morning story, and I talked about it in my earlier video, the removal of the prohibition against persons in same-gender marriages serving as clergy and being ordained. And so that was a wonderful celebration. There was a wonderful celebration there on the floor at the break right after that happened. And that has really continued in lots of ways. If you've been following, I hope you have been, other folks on social media and even in national news, kind of the New York Times and the Washington Post, the Associated Press, CNN, all carrying stories about this really important removal. Again, as I mentioned in the earlier video, there is still more restrictive language to be removed. And we're going to continue working on that. I think that a number of those pieces will come up tomorrow. So tomorrow there still should be hopefully some really good movement. We want to continue to roll back all these pieces that like over the years have been put into the Book of Discipline. We need to take it and get each piece out, right? We're probably at a place now already where there would be enough conflict that even remaining restrictions would be hard to enforce. But we want to get all of that. We want to get all of that out. And we want to do that as we look at petitions that are going to be coming before the General Conference in the remaining days. We want to be mindful of doing this important work of removing language. And as we think about anything else that needs to be voted on, for example, as a constitutional amendment or things that might have to go to the annual conferences, to really try to be careful to allow people to focus on regionalization. And so to really prioritize, that's going to have to pass in all the annual conferences. And so you may see that come into discussion, whether and other folks that you're following, and maybe even on the floor of plenary, that now as we look at kind of a lot of the priorities, those 3 R's moving forward, the next step after General Conference is going to be ratification of the annual conferences. And so certainly delegates are very mindful. I hope they're very mindful. I know we're very mindful of the remaining work we have to do, doing that in a way that's going to continue that steady work, that's going to get those pieces, the removal of the pieces, passage of the revised social principles. Now that we've passed the regionalization pieces, to really set ourselves up as best as we can to allow annual conferences to vote supporting those constitutional amendments. When we returned from the lunch break, we had paused a couple of discussions. We had paused the discussion of bundling remaining petitions that the committee had voted in favor of, but that had not quite met the threshold for the consent calendar. They had a few too many no votes. And so after the lunch break, a little bit later in the afternoon, actually, because we wanted to make sure that folks not only knew what those petitions would be, but had a chance to pull them off, we had a printed list after the lunch break of 31. Folks were given the chance to pull things off as you would in a consent calendar. The body chose to use the same method of if you get 20 signatures from delegates, you can pull it off. 4 items were pulled off of that list. And so 27 items were approved that allowed us to really bundle a bunch of things. And then we also, in the midst of the afternoon, really first thing when we got back after we had some celebrations and of note, we had Methodist Family Day also today, where we got to hear greetings from we have lots of different categories of other Methodist churches, autonomous churches, and like different types of relationships, but got to hear some wonderful greetings from our other Methodist denomination siblings. And so that was really a treat. Then we returned to the petition that came out of committee, removing paragraph 2553, that paragraph that was added at the 2019 special session to specifically allow for disaffiliations. Now, our Book of Discipline has ways churches without that paragraph have left as congregations and negotiated with their annual conference trustees. Paragraph 2553 sought to standardize that process. It did not in reality standardize it a whole lot, but certainly was helpful, as then annual conference trustees used that as a starting point, as the Book of Discipline and the Judicial Council clarified they were able to. But before the lunch break, a motion to offer a substitute motion was ruled out of order because a substitute motion can't essentially go against the motion itself. Because if that's what you want to do, just vote against the motion. And so we came back, had more discussion, debate, but ultimately the petition passed to remove paragraph 2553. And so that removed disaffiliation. The paragraph as it was in the Book of Discipline had already expired, but that removed the ability for folks to simply just like change the date and extend it. So, so that I think was really significant as well. And as we continued then towards the end of our session, the last kind of chunk of things we dealt with were elections to the University Senate. That's the body that really coordinates what universities are approved as United Methodist. It helps determine which seminaries our pastors can go to. So the University Senate elections. And then we also had Judicial Council elections. Those are really significant because the Judicial Council is the body that rules on a whole lot of things, and if we're allowed to do them. If bishops have made the right decisions when their decisions have been challenged in annual conference sessions around questions of law, the Judicial Council can be asked in different ways by different groups or different people for a ruling about whether particular legislation is in violation of the Constitution or not. So this is a really significant group. And so we move through, it just takes time. They're both clergy and laity on the Judicial Council. And so move through electing those primary members of the Judicial Council as well as alternate members. We still have, and we had, I think, a couple more elections. There are a couple kind of smaller elections. The John Street UMC trustees, I overheard somebody say that apparently their bylaws, the church's rules require, they're one of our very historic churches in the United Methodist Church, require election by general conference. We simply were given a slate, we're asked to vote yes or no. So we still have more elections left. And one of the significant groups, at least judging by the fact of how many people were nominated from the floor, will be the General Commission on the General Conference. And that's the group that does a lot of work making General Conference happen. So those are the things that we did today. We're going to start, as we have every day, with worship tomorrow at 8 a.m. We're scheduled to move to plenary around 9 a.m. And we'll spend much of our sessions then tomorrow continuing to work through our calendar items, remaining petitions. Friday, we do have time to work through that, but a lot of that time is going to be spent on our budget and financial pieces. That's the day that our General Counsel on Finance and Administration will bring the budget, having reflected on financial pieces that we were to have, and we did deal with yesterday as the deadline. And so we will have other things that we may have other things that we deal with Friday, but we will certainly be dealing significantly with financial matters on Friday. So that's what we were doing. I hope that you check out all the wonderful celebration pictures and videos. There was a wonderful sing-along that Mark Miller led. It was really a wonderful celebration at First United Methodist Church in Charlotte. You can find them on YouTube and on Facebook where it was live streamed. So hopefully the video is still up. And just a joyous day for many here at General Conference. And we look forward to continuing the important work that we still have to do and making it to the end of General Conference with a lot of historic work done.